You're listening to the Urban Sports Scene. Ray Rogers, urbansportscene.com. Thanks for joining me. I'm so excited about today's show. I got a special guest. Shout out to my guy, Wole. He's not in the building right now, but hey, we're going to hold things down solo. Got a special guest joining me today, but before we get there, remember to subscribe to Urban Sports Scene on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, other podcast platforms. Just search the Urban Sports Scene. Also, make sure you subscribe to our Urban Sports Scene YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to hit us up on X at Urban Sports Scene. Also, hit us up on Facebook at Urban Sports Scene. And please like our Urban Sports Scene Facebook page. As I said, family, I'm excited because I got basketball royalty in the building. I'm going to be joined by the legendary Charlie Scott. And I told this guest, this gentleman before we came on that I can't hit on his whole resume, but I'm going to give you a few highlights because Mr. Scott is a native of New York and the famed Rucker Park. He also played 8 seasons in the NBA with the Phoenix Suns, the Celtics, the Lakers, the Nuggets. He was a 3-time NBA All-Star. He was inducted into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame in 2018. That's just giving you just a few snapshots. First African-American student athlete to ever receive a scholarship at the University of North Carolina. So much to discuss, but Urban Sports Scene family, join me and welcome me, Mr. Charlie Scott. Mr. Scott, what's happening?
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I mentioned when I introduced you that you're a native New Yorker, and I was born in D.C. And around my time, D.C. and New York had a basketball rivalry. Was it like that when you were coming up?
Oh, yeah. They used to have the games, New York against Philadelphia, New York against D.C., and because I'm from the old Rucker Park era. So, therefore, we used to have a lot of, games where we played against those cities, Philly and D.C., the players, the Austin Cars and guys like that. So, yeah, I remember that distinctly.
Oh, yeah. So New York is considered the Mecca. I respect it. But I love the D.C. area. Huh? Say that again, folks.
Okay, I got your sound back on.
Okay. You can. I was going to say New York is considered the Mecca, and I'm still a DC guy, though. I just wanted to get your perspective. Who's got the better basketball players?
Well, I'm from New York, so what do you think I'm going to say? But that's all. That's always been like an era of discussion. New York, Philadelphia, New York, D.C. Especially during my time period of growing up, where you didn't have much games on college basketball games or games on television. So therefore, those games in the park were really more reticent and more important because we didn't get to see each other on television that much during those time eras.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me just some perspective about what the street ball atmosphere was like when you were coming up. Like during my era, it was Rayford Alston and Stephon Marbury, those guys. What about during your days?
Well, during my days, it was Connie Hawkins and Jackie Jackson, and Tony Jackson, and Fred Crawford and those guys, and guys you'll probably never heard of, like Miles Akins, those were the guys that, I grew up watching, and again, Wilt Chamberlain used to come and play in the Rucker Park, and Satch Sanders, and Freddie Crawford. So, at that time, and Holcomb Rucker was running it at that time. So, it was a dream, to come, to be around the Rucker tournament and play in Rucker Park at the time when I was growing up.
Absolutely. And you have such a long journey in terms of basketball. So I want to start where you went to. I'm going to make sure I'm saying this right. New York, Stuyvesant Academy, right?
Well, Stuyvesant High School.
There we go. And you ended up at Laurinburg. Talk about that journey and how you went from New York City and how you ended up in the South at that time. And what year was that?
Well, it was 1963. And Stuyvesant High School was one of the high academic prep schools in New York City. There were 3 schools in New York City that the 5 boroughs, everybody in the 5 boroughs, the best students in the 5 boroughs took a test for, and only like 300 got into the school. It was Stuyvesant, Bronx High School of Science, and Brooklyn Tech. Those were the 3 high academic schools in New York City. And be honest with you, my teacher made me take the test for Stuyvesant High School. I mean, I wasn't really that much, interested in my academic standards. I mean, everybody at that time, we wanted to be basketball players or baseball players.
Hmm.
Which were not really high on, somebody from Harlem's, standards at that time. So, my grade school teacher, Miss Jarrett, made me take the test for Stuyvesant, and consequently, I got in. I passed the test to get in. It's like 15,000 kids take the test, and maybe I think 1,000 get in. And
Oh, wow.
I was fortunate enough to have that to pass the test to get in.
So you was blessed to get in, and then once you got in, of course, you already had that reputation. You could hoop, and I'm sure that was just a natural transition onto the basketball court. And what did that look like? How was your team? Who was your coach at the time?
Well, to be honest with you, I had to leave Stuyvesant because the high school coach wouldn't let me play on the basketball team.
Oh,
I mean, to be honest with you, like I said, the school was a high academic school.
okay.
Athletics was not even in their agenda of being important. And I never forget the name of that basketball coach was Ed Caballero. I never forget it. And then my sophomore year, he wouldn't even let me play on the basketball team.
Wow.
And, because most of the students at that time, the way they went to college was off of academic scholarships. None of them really, in fact, got athletic scholarships. Academic scholarships were the way they were going to school. So academics was really what the primary source of going to college was, and athletics were really a secondary thing. Well, with me, it was the opposite thought of mine. I thought of myself being able to go to school on an athletic scholarship. And my sophomore year, and to be honest with you, the team was 1-22 the year before then. And in my sophomore year, the coach, Ed Caballero, didn't want me to play on the team. And I said, if I can't play on a team that was 1-22, then I have to think of another form of where I wanted to go to school. So that's when I decided to leave Stuyvesant High School and transform and go down to Laurinburg Institute, which was known to be a school that had great basketball players, and Jimmy Walker had just left and gone to Providence College, and Dexter Westbrook had gone to Providence. So therefore, people that I have known of and knew had gone from there and gone to college, and I saw that as my opportunity to go to a school or a good college.
So what was that transition like, being a city boy and having to leave home? How'd you deal with that? And just give us some perspective as to how you were received.
Well, to be honest with you, it was a school that the majority of the players that played on the basketball team were from New York. And in fact, that's why
Okay.
I went. That's why I went there, because
Gotcha.
the guys that I mean, it was really my teammates. A guy named Skip Hayes, who ended up going to Providence, and and James Barlow, who went to Eastern Kentucky under John McClendon. These
Mhm.
were the guys that I knew. But what really was that I never forget, it was a summer that in the Rucker tournament, James Barlow brought up a young man named Jimmy Walker, who I had never seen before, and he came up and played in the Rucker tournament. And they all had gone to Laurinburg, and I was at a school called Stuyvesant High School, which is a high academic school in New York City.
Mhm.
The thing about it, like I said, my freshman year I was there, the team was 1-26, and the coach, and I'll never forget his name, was Ed Caballero, told me I couldn't play on the team. And I'm saying, if I can't play on a team that's 1-26, and I knew that, academically, I was a good student, but I was the one that made up my mind that academics was going to be my way of life. I knew that if I didn't get a scholarship in some form or fashion, that my chances of going to college was going to be very slim. So when I had friends that were going to Laurinburg Institute at that time, and they talked to me about it, and after seeing Jimmy Walker and Dexter Westbrook go from Laurinburg to Providence College, I saw this as my opportunity to go to school, to play basketball, and still get an opportunity to go to a high-ranking college. So, I took the opportunity that, again, I left a high academic school to go to a school that was predominantly black in the South that I'd never known anything about. But I knew that their players had gone from there to college, and that was my perception of the best way for me to get to college.
So yeah, I want to ask you. You mentioned Coach McClendon. I wanted to talk to you about your decision to attend North Carolina. You ended up making history at the University of North Carolina. And prior to that, what went into your decision to attend Chapel Hill? Because I'm an HBCU graduate. At that time, HBCUs were producing a lot of high level athletes on the basketball court, on the football field, and just all across athletics. And I heard, prior to us coming on to record, that you hung out at what is now known as North Carolina Central University. Of course, Coach McClendon made his mark there. So what went into your decision making, and was playing for an HBCU ever an option for you?
Well, the thing about it was that I hung out at North Carolina Central. That's very true. I spent more. I mean, I went to college at University of North Carolina, but I spent 90% of my time at North Carolina Central. I went to college at University of North Carolina, where I was the only black on the basketball team and probably one of the only 4 or 5 blacks in the school. But North Carolina Central was only 8 miles away, and if I wanted to have a socially, enjoyable life, I had to spend my time at North Carolina Central. So I spent 99% of my time at North Carolina Central University, because, that's where I got a chance to hang out with people of my own color and really enjoy myself outside of playing basketball. At the University of North Carolina, I was accepted, of course, in Chapel Hill. They accepted me, as a basketball player and as a student. But socially, I was not able to even be with my own teammates, because the places they were going to, I couldn't go to. I couldn't go to the fraternities at that time because the fraternity was all white. There weren't any blacks in those fraternities. So why would I be there and stand out on the basketball court? It was different because, my teammates accepted me, and all of them had accepted me, and I went there with the understanding of that. But trying to hang out at the university in the fraternities and things like that was really not something that I would feel comfortable with in my social life. So I spend 99% of my time socially on North Carolina Central University, or going to North Carolina A&T and other schools so I can enjoy myself.
That's a beautiful thing. So did you ever think to yourself, I would want to play basketball at one of these schools instead of at North Carolina, or you knew the opportunity that you had being on the campus of UNC Chapel Hill?
Well, that was the biggest thing, the opportunity to play for the University of North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, the opportunity, and not only that, I mean, to be fairly honest, at that time, even if I was thinking about going to pro basketball, not the black colleges had very few players that went from there into the NBA. Al Adams, is one, but then they're low draft choices. They really had to make the team. Whereas you had the guys from Duke and North Carolina State and Wake Forest and them, they're number 1 and number 2 draft choices. They basically have a place on the team and really are looked at, a lot easier. It's a lot easier for them to make a professional basketball team because of the rankings of where they are, their notoriety and all those things come into playing. Very few. You have the guys like Sam Jones who made it from there, but you got to remember Bill Russell went to the University of San Francisco. That wasn't a black school. The guys that made it into the pros at that time usually went to the major colleges. And if you think about, you really want an opportunity to go to the pros, you had to go to a major college. Coming from a small college, would have not given you the opportunity, that you really needed, even to be seen as much.
Yeah, well, it's still that way today, as we know, but it's all good. I'm glad you were able to hang out and get that experience on the yard at Central, and you said it also at A&T. But at the time, I wanted to know, I've seen some of your past interviews, but I still want to know for myself and for those who are watching this interview, did it hit you the magnitude of what you were achieving and accomplishing as the only black on the team and one of the only African Americans on campus?
Well, of course, I understood it. I didn't know how big of a deal it would be, but I understood it. I mean, to be honest with you, that was my high school's coach's dream more than it was my dream. He was from North Carolina. He grew up in the state of North Carolina. He understood the importance of the University of North Carolina. Because to be honest with you, if I had my choice at that time and my number one choice to go to college was Davidson College. That was because the coach at that time was Lefty Driesell, and Lefty he was really the first white coach to recruit me. He recruited me for
Mm.
Davidson, and Lefty let me absolutely choose the other four guys that end up going to Davidson. Anytime he had a recruit come up to Davidson, he would bring me up that weekend and ask me how I liked the guys and did I want to play with them. And Lefty was really the first white coach that showed me so much friendliness and a feeling of really wanting me, and so I had an affinity, and until to the day he passed, Lefty has always been a special person to me.
Yeah, he coached in Maryland. That's where I live. Like I told you, I was born in D.C., grew up in Maryland, just outside DC. So Lefty Driesell is a big name around here, of course. So I'm familiar with that. And I was talking before we came on, such a small world, especially in the world of athletics. So it's amazing to see how your journey included Lefty Driesell. But moving along, um, thinking about before we get to your pro journey, you went to the Olympics in '68. Describe that experience at the time because there was a lot going on in terms of African American athletes.
Yeah, well, really, at that time, there were some great players in college who really didn't, go out for the team, especially Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. This was during the time where you had the boycotting of the Olympics, mostly from the West Coast players. you know, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lucius Allen, all the UCLA players did not, try out for the team, because of the boycott that was going on from the West Coast side of it. But from my standpoint, I was a sophomore in college, uh, really just starting to make a name for myself, and this was an opportunity for me to expand myself to expand the player that I was, and for other people to get opportunity to see me play. So, for me, it was an opportunity to become a national figure rather than just be a local figure in the South. So, I mean, I took that opportunity to go and try out for the team, and fortunate enough, I was able to make the Olympic team at that time.
Wow, that's exciting. And what did you achieve in the Olympics, or what did the team achieve? Where did you place, and what was the competition like internationally then?
Oh, really, to be honest with you, because Kareem did not, go out for the Olympic team,
Hmm.
and players like, because, at that time, seniors in college could also go out there. So, in other words, Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld and Kareem were eligible to play on the Olympic team, but
Hmm.
they did not go out for the Olympic team. So, when the team was chosen, to be honest with you, people didn't give us much of an opportunity or a chance to win because they thought that we were not the best players in the country at that time, and the Soviet Union was really chosen to win the Olympics at that time, and because at that time in America only collegiate and AAU players could play, whereas in other countries their players were more or less professional players, that had professional experience, and they were still allowed to play in the Olympics. So therefore, we were looked at as really the underdogs for the Americans at that time and the opportunity to win the Olympics. But that's because they didn't know about players like Spencer Haywood. I mean, Spencer was coming from junior college, and no one knew much about him, and didn't think much about what he could do at that time. And I think he, more than anyone else, was a surprise player of the Olympics.
And you won that gold medal,
Yeah,
surprising everybody.
yes.
Despite what you just said, where do you rank that gold medal in terms of your list of accomplishments?
Well, I mean, it's one of my, my favorite list of accomplishments was going through the University of North Carolina because that was breaking a color line, that was breaking a barrier that that people for a long time did not want to accept the fact of a black athlete at the University of North Carolina, and then to be able to be a successful athlete in the ACC. To me, that was very important because that opened the line for other schools to get black basketball players in the ACC. I mean, it's just, I mean, I truly believe if I wasn't successful, then other schools would look at it and say, see, black athletes are not really ready to play in the ACC, are not ready to play under this competition. So my success was very important to how other athletes would look at, because then, I mean, like anything else, every every other school said, then I got to go get me a black Charlie Scott. I got to go get me a black player now, because
Mm.
all the important. You got to remember, before then, the Big Ten had most of the players from the South that have that was successful. Walt Bellamy was from North Carolina, but he ended up going to Indiana. Most players from the South end up going to the Big Ten to play college basketball and football. Well, with my success came the opening for black athletes to play in the South, to play in the ACC, to play in the Southeastern Conference. And as of today, you can see the success of those players in those conferences.
I love that. I love that. There's so many more questions I could ask. Like I said, we're gonna do a part two. But for the sake of time, I appreciate you and your perspective and all that you've experienced. Talk about when you made it to the pros, because you didn't go to the NBA right away. Is that correct?
No, I went to the ABA,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason for that was really is because the team in the ABA at that time that I went to, when I signed with them, it was the Washington. They were in Washington D.C., and the players on the team were Larry Brown, who was my college coach and had recruited me for North Carolina, and really I had a very close relationship with Larry, at that time, and Larry had, spoken to me about the fact that they really believed that the ABA and NBA would be consolidated in the immediate future. And at that time, if I was going to be drafted in the NBA, it was going to be by a team that really had a very small chance of being a good team, because I was going to be a high draft choice for me. I would go to a team that was really very low in the rankings in the NBA. And I felt like if I, and coming to the NBA, when I come to the NBA, I wanted to play on a team that was going to be competitive. And it was always talked that the ABA and the NBA were going to consolidate real soon. So I thought if I
Mm-hmm.
played with the Virginia Squires, which had a very good team, that when I got into the NBA, I would be on a team that would be very competitive to play, rather than a team that would be at the lowest end of the NBA standards.
Man, so do you feel like, looking back, do you feel like that strategy was the right move? And just talk about a little bit about the ABA experience. Was it different from the NBA game at all?
Oh, it was much different from the NBA. Three point shot. The wide open play. You got to remember, at that time the NBA was about the center play. The big man was the most important player on the team. That's what made the ABA and the NBA so different. The ABA was more about the little guys, the smaller players. The guards were the most important players in the ABA. In the NBA, it was the Will Chamberlains, the Nate Thurmans, the Willis Reeds. Those were the players that dominated the game. In the ABA, players like Julius, the forwards, the
Yeah.
guards dominated the league. So that was the difference in playing who dominated the league at that, who dominated the position. You remember Bill Russell won 9 championships. It was about the big men that dominated the league at that time in the NBA. So the ABA was more of a wide open style of play, more open for the little man to be more successful in the game in the way it was played. And I mean, but really, I was influenced by the team I was going to, because it had, again, the guy who had recruited me for college, who was Larry Brown, who I had a very close relationship with. And an opportunity to play with him was really very important to me. And the team I was looking to go in the NBA was really a team that wasn't going to be very successful. So I thought, I was used to playing winning basketball. I wasn't ready to go on a team that was going to be at the end of the totem pole of basketball and losing. So, I took the opportunity to go play in the ABA with the presumption, of course, that it would eventually join the NBA.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And of course, you go from the Squires, you end up in Phoenix. At a point in time, you converted to Muslim. And I just want to get your perspective, and I want you to share with our listeners what was that experience like, what went into that decision, and how were you received when you made that transition and when you converted?
Well, I mean, at that time, Islam and really really black nationalism was on the forefront of America at that time. And so, I had a very good friend, who I grew up with, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and these were the guys that really, educated me on source of Islam, and I think that their perspective influenced my perspective on why I did some of the things I did. Because again, I was a neophyte in life. And again, you always have some people that you look up to, and that you willingly take advice from and see their perspective on things. And I think that I was more or less following in the footsteps of what I thought. People that I respected, like Kareem, things and perspective that they took, and I took their perspective into what I was thinking at that time.
Absolutely. NBA, you just talked about it. You described just the game it was, the guys that played in the NBA. You mentioned Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's just one of many names, great players that played at the time. On the court perspective, what was that transition like, and how did you find yourself fitting into your new role and also to a new franchise? And how did that? How long did I guess that process take for you to adjust?
Well, to be honest with you, basketball was basketball to me. You got to remember, in
Yeah.
the ABA, I had an opportunity to play with a pretty good basketball player in the ABA named Julius Erving. So, so I mean, the
Yeah.
perspective of playing with great players was not a new thing to me. You know, like I said, I played with Julius before people knew he was Doc. So I'm saying, like I had the opportunity to play with great players, and 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 uh, and again, basketball. The thing about I always tell people, the rim is always 10 feet tall. The basketball is the same.
Same thing.
Nothing changed, but the ability of the basketball players. And again, I was very fortunate the fact that I was a 6'6" guard, where at that time, and probably to this day, there's not many 6'6" guards in basketball. So I had the advantage that I had the size over most people I was playing with. And I had good teaching leading up to that. I played for the University of North Carolina. I played under Larry Brown and Dean Smith, so I had good fundamental teaching. So I was really prepared to play basketball at a high level from people that I was taught to play basketball with.
Oh, uh, you scored a lot of points in the AVA and the NBA, so it was just that easy. It was just that smooth. And what's interesting is you mentioned the names that you played against, but I think that probably motivated you to kind of play at a high level. Although I don't know how you viewed yourself in comparison to the names you just mentioned. Did you see yourself as one of those guys, sort of in the upper echelon of the stars in the league at the time?
Well, yeah, I'm from New York City. I'm from Rucker Park.
You got the swagger, yeah.
We always thought we were bad. So I mean, shit, what you talking about? What's into the little competition? You got to remember, growing up, that's how we grew up. We all, well, my block wanted to beat the other block. It was always, that was always, especially as black folks at that time, that was always our thing, to be competitive, against each other. So, competitiveness and the desire to be the better ball player, or to be the better, either the better athlete was in our DNA. It was in my DNA. So, it just something that strived within me. And then what helped it along the way is that when I had opportunity to go to, the University of North Carolina, then I was able to pick up white ways of playing basketball. So I had my black ways of playing basketball, and then I picked up the white ways of playing basketball. So I was conditioned to play any type of basketball, and that really helped me along the way.
So I'm gonna guess that was like a combination of flashiness and fundamentals at the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
time.
yeah. you learn to play one-on-one in the Rucker, but then in the white games, you learn to play, okay, this is play number 3. You pick down here and you roll over here. So I was able to, so I had the best of both worlds.
Oh man, I tell you, you go on to win an NBA championship, and what year was that? 76.
76.
How special was that team, and what can you tell us about it? And also, did you get a chance to play with the late John Thompson, he's a legend in this area where I'm from in DC?
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, I've known John Thompson for a long time because John Thompson was a good friend of Dean Smith. So John used to come down to Carolina a lot and coach. He was a good friend of Dean Smith. You got to remember when Dean Smith was the coach of the Olympic team, he made John Thompson one of his assistants. So he and John Thompson was always very close. So I mean, I've known John Thompson. I knew John Thompson for a very long time. And of course he was a great coach and everything.
Absolutely. My bad. I messed up on that one. Although that's definitely what I wanted to ask you. But also about that championship team. Talk about how talented that team was and just how you got it done. Winning the championship is hard. And you said Bill Russell won 9 of them. That's crazy. So it speaks to how great he was. And like you said, the climber league, the big guys. But winning that championship, what was that experience like for you?
Oh, well, to be honest with you, I mean, I had JoJo White, Hall of Famer, Dave Cowens, Hall of Famer, John Havlicek, Hall of Famer. How goddamn hard could it be? I had 3 Hall of Famers, playing, and then the 4th guy was Paul Salas, who should be a Hall of Famer. So I mean, to me, that was the greatest time of my life for playing basketball because it was like going out on the court, and the thing about it, we had to lose the game. No one was going to beat us. We had to lose the game. I mean, that's why I felt like we had no weaknesses. That was a team that had no weaknesses. We started John Havlicek, JoJo White, Dave Cowens, Paul Salas, and myself, and we brought Don Nelson off the bench. So, we had a great team. I mean, that to me was the greatest time for me for playing basketball, because it was just fun going out there and knowing that, or I'm not going to say knowing because that's being a little maybe overconfident about, but feeling like no one can beat you.
Yes, sir. And that led to, of course, your career led to you being inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame. You from New York, but come on now, you had to feel good. It had to be some pride going into the Hall of Fame. Like you accomplished something great considering all that you went through, your journey. How gratifying was that induction to the Basketball Hall of Fame?
Well, of course, like when you spend your whole life doing something, and then at the end you have an opportunity to be put into a group of people that are the best of the best of what you do. I mean, that's an extraordinary feeling. I mean, I feel very blessed. I feel very fortunate. I thank the people that I played with. I thank the people that I played for because all those people were the ingredients into making me the individual and the player that I was. The good thing about basketball is not like golf. It's not like swimming or like track. One person can't do it. There was a group of people that was with me that helped me along the way. In college, it was Coach Smith, and the players that I played with, Rusty Clark and Dick Grubauer. And the pros, it was Paul Salas and JoJo White and Dave Cowens and John Havlicek, and I can go on and on, But I'm saying that, the good thing about basketball is a team sport. The success of an individual is really correlated to the success of the people around him. And I was really blessed to play with a lot of great basketball players who allowed me to be the player that I became and allowed me to do the things that I did on the basketball court. And I'm just very fortunate enough to end up where I ended up with. And good thing about it is that all the players that I named that I played with, they all end up in the Hall of Fame. So that goes to show that, it wasn't just me. It was, I was with a bunch of other Hall of Famers.
Yeah, I wanted to ask. I mean, you know what? It's so many things that I could get to, but you know what? I'm gonna say that for next time because I'm hoping again that I can have you back on. But before I let you get out of here, I want to just get your perspective on today's game. What do you think about the modern game? How it's played now? With the way the Steph Currys have changed the league. Do you enjoy this game, and how do you compare from your era to now?
Well, I mean, there are great players in today's game. There's no doubt about it. Steph Curry is a great player, a great scorer. I mean, he could fit in any era and would be a great basketball player. You know, but I mean, of course, we all gonna always look at our era and say those were the greatest basketball players. You got to remember. You got to remember, I played with Oscar Robertson, Will Chamberlain, Walt Frazier, Earl Monroe, Nate Thurman, Gus Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Rick Barry. You know, I'm naming guys that I played against. They're all Hall of Famers. If all the guys who play nowadays end up in the Hall of Fame, then they could say the same thing. But I don't think many of these guys will end up where those guys ended up. So, I had the chance to play against great basketball players. I played with Julius Erving. I played with Connie Hawkins. I played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Played with Paul Silas. I played with great basketball players. I played on the Olympic team with Spencer Haywood. So, I had the opportunity to play with great basketball players, to play against great basketball players, and I wouldn't change my career for anything. I mean, I think I did what I was able to do, and I played with great basketball players who showed their ability to be who they were, and I'm just glad to be a part of that environment and that era.
Absolutely. And I believe that even though it's not always talked about, that this era and my era, so to speak, because I'm a little older than these guys playing today, we appreciate, those like yourself who are pioneers where it's now, and it's been like this for a while, it's a predominantly African American league. But as you know, it wasn't always like that. And the college game was a lot different. So you are a trailblazer. We appreciate you. And I just thank you for coming on and spending a few minutes with me. Hope to do it again, as I said. Before we let you go, just share with our listeners anything that you could say as a source of motivation to keep going for those young guys who are now forging their own basketball path in a different era where it's AAU basketball, NIL, college athletes can get paid. The game has changed, but listen to you, it just sounds so natural. Like, man, the rim's still 10 feet. The
Well,
ball
that's true. I mean, the idea about it is, like, when you go on the basketball court, the guy in front of you, you got to beat him. That's what it always boiled down to. The guy in front of you, you got to be better than the guy in front of you. I never forget it when I was playing with the Celtics. You have your scouting report and everybody, and they have these big scouting papers, and they put up all these, and they have all these things about all the players, and you have these eight, and they have all these sheets of papers about what guys can do. I never forget Dave Collins got up on after they went through all the scouting report, and Dave said it be perfectly easy. He said, "I beat my man, Charlie beat his man, John beat his man, Joe beat his man, and Paul beat his man. We win the game." That's how it goes.
Basic. That's it. That's it.
Basketball is the basic thing. You beat your guy, and then you can go from there. And it still boils down to that in basketball. You got to be better than the guy you're playing against. And if you're not better than the guy you're playing against, then you got hell on your hands.
Well, Mr. Scott, thanks again for joining us. Look forward to chopping it up with you in the future. Congratulations. And hey, now you can add to your resume you were a guest on the urban sports scene. And just remember, New York is dope. It is the Mecca, but don't sleep on us down here in the DC area.
DC always says that too.
That's the claim to fame.
Hey, Austin Carr, Dave Bing, I ain't forget y'all guys. Okay, definitely so it is.
That's what I'm saying. In the documentary, Lou Alcindor, Powell Memorial, they came to DeMath and they lost. So, that's what we do. That's what we
can't keep living off that one game.
We try, right? We try.
I'm saying y'all keep living off that one game. You gotta remember. Kareem went to private school. He didn't play. If he brought him around the other public school guys, I don't think the Master would have done too well. No, I'm just kidding. The Master had great players. Austin Carr, those guys. I remember.
Yeah.
So they was great. But yeah, that game made basketball what it was also for high school basketball. I remember people always talked about it. But thank you for having me on, dude.
Absolutely. Well, this has been fun. I appreciate, like I said, just you joining me, and I'll be in touch soon. Have a blessed day, and I'll be looking out for future interviews with you, and also talk a little more trash. It's going to be fun. Thanks again, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right.
All right. That was the great Charlie Scott joining me here on the Urban Sports Scene, man. That was dope. I know not everybody's always into, just going back into the history, but if you like me, I love that stuff because before we played the game as we know it today, it was guys like Mr. Charlie Scott who, of course, paved the way for those of us who play the game today and who played, throughout my era as well. That includes Michael Jordan and others. And I'm sure for those who love the history lessons, you enjoyed that. Still a lot of things to get to. Like I said, hopefully we can have Mr. Scott back. But thank you for joining me on the Urban Sports Scene today. Subscribe to our podcast again on Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and other podcast platforms. Just search the Urban Sports Scene. Also, hit us up on X at Urban Sports Scene. Check out the Urban Sports Scene Facebook page. If you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. And also, hit us up on TikTok. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. Well, they going to get me for that, but it's all good. If you're on TikTok, check out the Urban Sports Scene. Again, just search Urban Sports Scene and check out the home of the Urban Sports Scene, urbansportscene.com. My man Wole, I can't be like him, but he would say, it's the Urban Sports. No, you've been listening to the Urban Sports Scene for ages. You dig? Deuces. A Mega, lead us out, big homie.